There's no question, the Gibson Les Paul is simply one of the most iconic guitars ever created. It is instantly recognizable by its shape, instantly inspiring by its tone. Still, when somebody says Les Paul, they could mean any one of many versions that have been landed on at different periods of time. Gibson is keenly aware of the unique appeal of each iteration, and they continue to make these different models available with their era-specific features. While the majority of the guitar's features have remained more or less the same since its early years, Gibson has experimented with things like different neck profiles, pickup designs, and hardware implementations. This week we want to talk about 3 different watershed designs that all harken back to their own individual era of innovation. While certain features are consistent throughout the line, each model boasts telltale signs of the period of production that inspired it. Gibson's current production includes the original collection, which encapsulates 3 decades of Les Pauls in 8 different models. Broken up by decade, this line brings us the Les Paul Standard 50s and Standard 60s, both of which come in a faded version. Also included are the Standard 50s P90 model, 70s Deluxe, as well as the Les Paul Special and Les Paul Jr. In this video, we will be going over the similarities and differences between 3 of these models: the Standard 50s P90 model, the Standard 60s model, and 70s Deluxe. We are going to start in the 50s when Gibson first introduced the Les Paul to the world. All future models have been based on or inspired by the designs of this decade. The Gibson Les Paul Standard 50s P90 guitar has a mahogany body, maple top, and a rosewood fingerboard, features shared by both of the other models we are talking about today. Some other shared features are the two-pneumatic bridge, aluminum stop bar tailpiece, trapezoid inlays, and a traditional Les Paul control layout with 2 tone knobs and 2 volume knobs. Where the Les Paul Standard 50s P90 guitar displays its individuality is mainly in its pickups and neck profile. As indicated in the model name, this guitar sports a pair of Gibson P90 pickups, just like the very first Les Pauls. This type of pickup was designed to compete with the existing single coil pickups of the day, while providing a higher output and a warmer tone. The P90 brought punch, it brought power, it brought distinction. On the spec sheet for this guitar, you will also notice that the description for the neck profile is 50s vintage. Cool, what does that mean? Well, the neck profile is the measurement of the bit of the neck that sits in the palm of your hand when you play. The 50s vintage neck profile is carved fairly deep, meaning there's a lot of substance to it. It's a fat neck, sort of like a baseball bat. If we compare this profile to the next guitar on our list, the Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s, we see that the newer model was introduced with a noticeably thinner profile. Today we call this the slim taper neck. The 60s profile feels a lot more similar to modern trends in neck shape, trimmed down and fast playing. The 1950s had seen the introduction of the famous P90 pickup and that solid single cutaway body. A few years later, in 1955, Seth Lover and Ted McCarty of Gibson created an innovative new pickup design. The company now offered their electric guitar with a set of PAF, or patent applied for, humbuckers. The humbucking pickup offered higher output and a much fatter tone, more power. But more importantly, it silenced the electronic hum associated with plugging a guitar into an amp. These Les Paul models were successful for a time, but in 1961, the traditional body style was discontinued for the daring double cut we know today as the SG. The archtop, solid body that we are familiar with came back in 1968, equipped with the original P90 pickups. While they were not currently in production, the humbucker-equipped models did start becoming more popular with players as they discovered them in the 60s. In 1969, after the company was purchased by Norland, the Les Paul with humbuckers came back into production. Today's standard 60s models are outfitted with a modern version of this innovation called the burstbucker. Some other small changes can be seen in this model's hardware as well, with the switch to Grover's Rotomatic tuners and Gold's top hat reflector knobs. It's worth mentioning that the maple top of the 60s models is chosen from AA flame maple with a more pronounced figuring in the wood grain. Gibson's next iteration needed to bring something really special to the table. And so they did with the new Les Paul Deluxe in 1969. Introducing a new take on a proven design, Gibson rolled into the 70s with the Mini Humbucker. Big in sound, in a smaller package, the Mini Humbucker was equally as effective in bucking the hum as its predecessor, but now with more clarity and brightness. The Les Paul 70s Deluxe guitar kept the majority of the features that players had grown to love, but it offered up an entirely new range of sounds that held its own place beside the P90 and Humbucker pickups. The other distinguishing features of the Les Paul 70s Deluxe are the rounded C-shaped neck, vintage-style keystone tuners, and a plain top maple cap. The Gibson Original line of guitars is meant to pay tribute to the models that established the foundation of Gibson's electric guitar legacy. They bring us the beloved features that defined their era in an instrument built to the high standards of today's modern manufacturing. While it's one thing to hear about the evolution of the guitar, it's another thing entirely to physically compare each model side by side. The way a neck feels in a player's hand cannot accurately be described with words, nor can the sound of the pickups or the weight and balance of the tone woods. At Long & McQuaid, we display these models together so that you have the opportunity to feel and understand the difference for yourself. When you walk into our store, you are going to see an epic wall of guitars, and on that wall of guitars, you are going to see a great selection of Gibsons. Allow yourself some time to take a couple down off the wall, sit down with them, plug them in, and feel it. That's how you shop for a Gibson. Thanks for watching, and I hope we see you soon.